Hello everyone, today I'm taking a look at a new indie game by the name of Undeadly. Now for full transparency, I was given a review key by the developer, but this is not a sponsored video. I'm just going to be telling you about my experience with the game and giving you my thoughts. So what is Undeadly? Well, it's quite a few things. It combines XCOM style turn-based gameplay with the zombie survival genre, but it's also got some tower defense elements as well. And I have to be honest, I do really like zombie survival games, so I was keen to play this. It's made by Irreflex Studios, and I believe the developer is a one-man operation, so it's pretty incredible to see what one person has put together. And so you know, the game is in early access, and it is pretty bare bones as far as features go right now. But anyway, let's get into it. We start off with 6 survivors in the zombie apocalypse. We've set up shop in a house, but we're going to need supplies to keep things running. So our group of wary survivors must set forth into the world to grab some loot and hopefully not die horribly. And in addition to zombies, there's also these weird glowing things. I think they're called rifts, but we'll worry about those later. I split the group up into 3 teams of 2. I figure we'll spread out to maximise the amount of supplies we can find. And each of our survivors have different abilities. So for example, Dean here can use the shotgun. Other survivors can't do that because they don't have the appropriate weapons training. Now every survivor gets 3 action points per turn, and the action points are a little bit weird. You can see here the game is telling me how many action points my movement will use. Blue is 1, orange is 2, and green is 3. So that part's fine, but attacking is a bit strange. Attacks take away 2 action points, but you only need 1 action point to attack. Confused? Well, let me put it this way. If I have 3 action points and shoot, that'll leave me with 1 left over, that makes sense. But with that 1 remaining action point, I can actually shoot again and my action points will go to 0. So basically you can either move and shoot in the same turn, or if you remain stationary, you can shoot twice, which is a really nice feature. And your action points can be used on other things too, like reloading your weapon or scavenging through containers to find supplies within. There is an Overwatch-like mechanic that every survivor can use, but it's melee only. You can end a survivor's turn by using Unguard. This will allow them to counterattack any zombies that approach them. Now the first counterattack has a 100% chance to connect, the second a 75% chance, the third a 50% chance, and so on down to 0. And some of these survivors will also have special combat abilities that they can use, like special attacks, but I'll be honest, I barely touched these. I didn't really understand how they worked, and usually just using Unguard and using standard shots seemed like the best approach to deal with the enemies we were facing. And I gotta say, using the weapons in combat, it feels pretty satisfying. The guns sound great. And when firing, you can choose either to go for a regular shot or a headshot. Now with a regular shot, there's a chance the zombie can come back as a crawler, it has less HP, does less damage, and it moves slower, so it's a lot less threatening than the original zombie, but it can still hurt you. Whereas with a headshot, the zombie will go down permanently the first time, guaranteed. Now the problem is that headshots can miss. They're normally around 60% chance to hit before any upgrades, whereas with a regular shot, provided that you're in that weapon's range, it will always connect. And this game does have the Pokemon effect, where those 60% shots seem to miss almost 100% of the time. So after a while, I found myself going with regular shots all the time. The crawlers aren't that threatening in most situations, so it seemed like the better play. And now the really cool thing here with the turn system is that with each turn, time actually passes in-game. So while we're scavenging through the city, it becomes nighttime. And the basic premise of this game is that during the day, the zombies are fairly passive, they'll only attack you if you get too close to them. but at night they'll become much more aggressive and they will actively seek the survivors out. And while they're doing this, your objective is to keep the survivors alive for as long as possible. Now to do that, you're going to need weapons, and to craft weapons, you're going to need to loot the scrap that you find on the map. Now unfortunately for two of our survivors, Dean and Pauletta, I sent them to a part of the map that had a large infestation of zombies, and Pauletta is the first of our merry band to become zombie snack food. Now as far as I can tell, your survivors don't come back as zombies. That would have been a cool feature. Maybe we'll see that in an update, I don't know. Now meanwhile, the rest of the team have made it back to the base safe and sound. I try some crafting and the UI did take me a little while to get my head around, but thankfully with the help of Twitch chat I was able to figure it out. And it's actually pretty simple, to be honest. You know how some games have like 10 different currencies and some of them are super rare and it makes crafting a massive chore? Like I remember spending over an hour looking for a fox skin in Horizon Zero Dawn. And I'm pleased to say there's none of that nonsense in this game. To make an item, you only need two things as far as I can tell. The required scrap to make it, and an engineer with a high enough level of knowledge to build the item. Now you'll start with an engineer capable of making standard items like ammo and basic traps, but if you want to craft some of the more exotic things like sniper rifles or more shotguns, you'll need to level up the engineer. And as far as getting scrap goes, pretty much all the items you scavenge will give you scrap. So you don't have to spend 100 years looking for one particular ingredient. It's a really nice system. It's simple and I really like it. Now, as poor old Dean is desperately trying to get back to the base, here's a good time that we can talk about the rifts. They'll create different hazards on the map. Here they've all turned into time bubbles. You can't pass through a time bubble, and if you're in their AoE when they activate, your survivor will get frozen. So these things are kind of bad news for Dean, as he's now trapped until they disappear, which they will do on their own after a few turns. Now the good part is they also affect zombies in the exact same way. So you can potentially use these things to your advantage. And also be aware that some zombies will turn into a time bubble upon death, and you will get caught in it if you're on an adjacent tile. Now this can make melee combat a very dangerous proposition. Now thankfully a unit cannot be harmed while inside the bubble, but the bad news is the bubble disappears on the zombie turn, not on ours. So once the time bubble drops, the zombies will have a full turn to lay waste to your character before you can respond. And yes, I did learn this the hard way. Back at base, Laurie here has a very helpful ability. She's a doctor and can heal other survivors in the medical bay. Now they can heal without a doctor, but Laurie will speed up the process greatly. So don't let your doctor get injured as they're not able to heal themselves. Yes, I did learn that one the hard way as well. And just like your engineer, you can level up your doctor so they heal others even faster, and you can even train the other survivors to become a doctor as well. And so how do you level up and train people? Well, you get them to study at the library, of course. And I have to say, it's a pretty tedious process. 18 hours of studying will give them 1 available skill point. And learning most abilities requires 2 or 3 skill points, so it's going to take a while. Now combine that with having 6 survivors and only 1 of them can be studying at a time, and yeah, you're in for a long haul here. I imagine most people's survivors will be long dead before they're able to level up too much. And I believe zombies can still attack them while they're studying, so you can't even send the rest of the team out to scavenge and leave one person studying. The other survivors need to be at the base to protect that person while they're in the library and can't defend themselves. I have found one other way to get skill points, but it's quite rare. And all of that I've outlined, that's only getting the skill point. Actually learning the new skill on top of that takes a few more turns. So after playing for a while, I kinda just gave up on leveling because it was just taking way too long. So anyway, for night 2, we're holding up in the base. We can plant hazards like bear traps and mines at the entrances of the building to slow the zombies down, so that's really good. And this is the part where the game feels a bit like a tower defense. We're just trying to hold off the horde as best we can, and they're not going to stop coming, at least until the sun comes up. And then check this out. Here comes these green flying orbs. They leave behind a path of poison. Now, some of our characters can't cross it, but others can just fine. And I realise it's not hazardous if your character is wearing a gas mask. So try to prioritise getting gas masks for everyone as quick as you can. You can either craft them or you can scavenge them from places on the map. And the trail of poison will affect most zombies too, so again you can potentially use this to your advantage by forcing the zombies to chase you through the poison. It works as you'd expect, inflicting damage over time, and it can be really useful. Now, we do start to get overwhelmed on night 3. And here I learn another lesson the hard way. See, regular weapons you can shoot past your allies to hit a zombie, but the shotgun, it works a bit differently. It has an AoE. And yeah, I find out at Terrence's expense that you cannot shoot past allies with the shotgun.
Close range.
So yeah, a little bit brutal there. And then we get the PUBG treatment as this weird purple thing comes to eat us, but it turns out it actually gives us a buff. Now that's really cool, and this is the other way of getting skill points that I mentioned earlier. And these things seem to come around about every 3 nights. Now I will be honest here, this run seems like a bit of a loss. We're short on survivors, we're drowning in zombies, and we're high on injuries. So we're going to finish this one up. But yeah, that's the main idea of the game. Scavenge resources, use the resources to build weapons, and then use the weapons to fend off the zombies. And see how long you can last. There's only one game mode at the moment, but I believe the dev does have plans to add others in time. And there's also only one map right now too, but it is quite big and there is some really cool set pieces for you to explore. Now, I did start a new game, and at the time of writing this script, I've survived for 8 nights without losing any survivors. And I think the biggest obstacle will arrive once you scavenge everything off the map. I'm not sure if the loot respawns or not. And if it doesn't, that means you're eventually going to run out of scrap to scavenge, which means you can't build new items, and eventually you're going to run out of ammo, and it's going to make defending yourself really difficult. I guess at that point it becomes a melee-only run. No, that's for later. Let's not worry about that right now. And I do have to warn you, the game is still pretty rough around the edges. Now, performance-wise, it ran fine for me, but there are things that need improvement, like the slider for sound effects volume not working. Sound effects are super loud, even if you set it to 0. The UI is also quite clunky. It could be made more user-friendly. But by far the biggest annoyance for me with this game was the fact that shooting at an enemy and moving onto a tile used the same button. So the amount of times that I misclicked next to an enemy that I wanted to attack, and instead of attacking, my survivor just ran in and stood right next to the monster, leaving them surrounded by zombies, it was pretty annoying. Now, misclicks in XCOM are annoying enough, but they're even worse in this game since they're going to result in your survivor running head first into danger. Now, all that being said, the developer is clearly really passionate about this game. He's got a Discord server that he's extremely active in, and as of the time of writing this script, he's already released multiple patches to address bugs and other issues. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that the world will change over time. Like this massive ship here started being eaten away into nothing before I even got the chance to explore it. It was really unexpected and really cool. And I'm wondering if the map just gets smaller and smaller over time until you're left on a tiny island jam-packed with zombies. I guess the only way I'm going to find out is if I keep playing. So then the big question, do I recommend this game? I mean, it really depends. If you buy the game in its current state, understand that it is somewhat bare bones at the moment. I mean, that being said, I've played for almost 7 hours and it's been really fun, and it's one of those games that doesn't explain all that much and you really have to learn by doing. The first campaign, maybe even the first couple that you do, are likely to end in disaster. But with each one, you're going to learn more about the mechanics, and that will help you make the next campaign more successful. So if you like that kind of thing where you're learning by doing, you might enjoy this. But again, there is currently only one game mode and one map, excluding the tutorial, so it may not have a huge amount of replayability for you. So all that being said, what I can say about this game is that it is leagues better than the last one we looked at in this Thoughts and Analysis series. And it's way cheaper than that game too. But yeah, that's probably the best advice I can give. Know what you're getting into and decide if the game seems worth it for you. And as for me, that's going to do it today. Let me know if you want me to follow this game and cover it further as it receives more updates. I'm definitely open to that if people want to see it. And thanks for watching. I hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.